chop that up that much. But I recorded that the other night and I tested it. I got a copyright hit and I wanted you to hear it playing along. So I had to chop it up a little bit and put it in the intro. Now, if you want to see that whole playthrough, I will leave it in the description. There's a link to the Facebook page. It's a public video. You can watch the whole playthrough right there. Watch me bobbing my head and all that nonsense and see me make a mistake right at the end. Anyway, welcome to a midweek Boss Katana Mk2 tone tutorial. I'm Scott. This is Guitarnivore. And we are obviously doing Deftones tonight. It was at request of user Mudbutter, and he asked for Deftones or Snapcase. And I was like, man, Snapcase, that's a band I haven't listened to in over 20 years. So I went with Deftones because I figured it's more of a popular band that people would want to hear and be able to relate with a little bit more. And I picked a super cool and easy song to do, and it was really fun to play and easy to learn. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm using this Squier Contemporary Jazz Master with some active pickups in it tonight, and I have to have my noise suppressor set a little bit different, and I'll go over that. We'll talk about that later. Let's get into the chain, because I've already talked here a good minute and a half. Let's get into the chain here. We've got it on chain 2 with the booster and the mod in front of the equalizer. I've got a light compressor on there, so we want to put that mod before the amp EQ. And we are going to use the crunch amp, and we're going to bump that gain up to about 74. Just give it some meat. And then volume, I'm going to bump that volume up to about 89 just so you can hear it. You're going to have to make those changes on your own amp according to your own amp's volume. So right now, you can hear we're getting there. We got a nice crunchy gain amp going on. And for our bass, we bumped the bass up to about 64, but we're going to roll the mids back to about 44. And we're going to put just a tad on the treble. But over here at Cabinet Resonance, I think might have been one of the first times I've used the deep cabinet resonance on a tone tutorial. And we're just giving it a smidge of presence at about 62. See how we're sounding? We are tuned into E flat and then down tuned into D, drop D, so it's drop D flat. And that is our panel. Right now I got no global EQ, no contour, but my system is set at line out record, so it sounds as close as possible to the speaker. Next, let's move into our booster. And for our booster, you already heard what we're sounding like with the crunch amp. We want to put a little boost into it with the tube screamer. We're going to dial that back down to about 9 and give it about 5 or 6 on the tone just to give it a little more treble. Let's bump it up to 7. And then the effects, normally I stop at about 50 with this one. Tonight we're going up to about 72 on it, just to give it some more. Without, with. Sounding good already, right? Yeah. Moving on to the mod, I got a light compressor going on here. Let's give it some sustain. And get about 63 on the sustain, but we don't need all that attack on there. Dial that back to about 50. And then add a little more treble on that one. And bump that level up to about 55. We want that sustain in there. I'm getting a little noise in my pickup here. You want that sustain in there just because right at the end of the chorus, you just kind of hit the last note and you let it ring out for a while the bass is playing and they're singing. Now let's jump up to the noise suppressor. I'm going to bump this up to about 68 just because I've got these active pickups and I don't need all that release on there. You can make those adjustments according to your own guitar and your own playing. If you're playing close to your amp, you might have to turn that noise suppressor up a little bit. If you got really hot pickups, you might have to play with it. If you got active pickups, you might have to play with it. So the volume on the amplifier and the noise suppressor is something that you're going to have to kind of figure out for your own rig. I've got an effects that you can put in here, but that's optional, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's go up to reverb. For our reverb, we're going to use a plate reverb. We're going to dial the reverb time to about 3 seconds and the pre-delay to about 24 milliseconds. Now, the low cut, I'm just leaving these flat and the density at 5 because it just feels like it doesn't make a difference with those on or off. Maybe on the high cut. I don't hear a huge difference in it. We're going to reel that effects level back to about 44. We just want a spacey feel to this, a little more on there. And we're getting there. So we got all our effects going on, and we've talked about the noise suppressor. Let's get into the parametric EQ. Now, as usual, I'm going amp out, and we're going to bump that low gain up to +7 and get that low cut up to 40. Now, for the low mid, I normally keep it at -2 decibels, but we're going to keep it right at 0 on this and bring our low mids back to 250. Now, the high mids, I didn't want too much of the high mid gain or the high gain on this. So I just left them at about 2 and our overall level at about 4. Now the high mid frequency, I dialed back to my sweet spots, 1.6, and the high cut back to 5 kilohertz. So now we've got a little more meat on it. I really like this. I had a lot of fun with this one. So we've got everything dialed in. Now what you can do, if you want a little more bottom end while you're playing through your amp, even if it's at a lower volume, add some octave to it. We're going to come down here and, where's that octave? There it is. We're going to add some octave. We're going to put it up to range 4. And then we're going to dial that effects level back to about 50, and we're going to leave the mix at about 100. Now, if you add the octave to it, it adds a lower octave of the note you're playing in the background, so it almost emulates like a bass is playing along with you, and it just adds a little more bottom end that can make it sound more fun when you're playing by yourself. I dig it, but that's not in the patch down in the download. You can add that if you like. Now let's talk about the tab I used to learn this. I'm going to show you the tab that you can use to learn this for free, but I use Ultimate Guitar. But over on Songster, you can learn to play it too. But one thing I don't like about this one on Songster is these slides right here. They're kind of weird. That one and the one right here. So when you're playing this, it's like... I don't know if that's how they really play it. I've never studied the video or watched it. That's not how Ultimate Guitar has it. That doesn't mean Ultimate Guitar is right, but I kind of trust them a little bit more. And when you got the... I'm about to point to my screen like you can see what I'm doing here. Right here, it's... That might be a little easier to play than hammering. I kind of hammer on that one. So that's up to you. You want to play it like that? Play whatever works for you. You don't always have to play it 100% correct to have fun with it and make it your own. That's going to wrap it up for this tone tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, hit that like button down there. I had a load of fun learning this song and playing and dialing it all in, and it was a blast. All the links for the tab, the playthrough, and the patch are down in the description, and we'll see you next time.